The Baseball Together Network presents the North Chicago Baseball Together podcast with your host, Denise. And now, North Chicago Baseball Together.
Well, hello everyone. This is Denise and welcome to my first podcast of 2023, covering the Chicago Cubs for our Baseball Together family. As you've noticed, it's almost May, and well, it's been a hot minute since I last did a podcast, and for that, I really apologize. You know, for those, I know I do have some regular listeners, and I really apologize that it's been a while since I've done this, but I'm excited to get back into this, excited for the 2023 season. So I'm going to try to fit a lot of information in a short amount of time, because I'm going to try to recap kind of the end of last season, go through the off season, where we stand right now. I may miss some details, but I'm going to high level everything and try my best. I did renew my season tickets, so I am a season ticket holder again for this year. And I did go to the Cubs convention this year. It was an absolute blast. I talked and met with Ryan Dempster, Ethan Roberts, Kerry Wood, Miguel Montero, Ron Coomer, Ray Burris, Tim Stoddard, and saw a ton of players. I sat in on Ian Happ's podcast, which was amazing. I got to see my favorite Mark Grace. Unfortunately, didn't get his autograph or a picture. He wasn't really signing with anybody. He was just on Happ's podcast show. I attended with my boyfriend Mark, and we had so much fun. Ray Burris, I talked with him for almost like a half hour. He was extremely nice. He gave me his business card, said he'd love to come on this podcast, so I really need to try and get him on this season. I just need to find time to try and dig into that. So hopefully I might be able to have some guests on. So we'll see. But before we start with the Cubs, I'm going to highlight some of the new rule changes for this year in baseball. So first of all, returning for another season is the ever so popular, can you notice the dripping sarcasm there, the ghost runner on second base in extra innings. This started during the COVID-shortened 2020 season. It was supposed to be done, but it is still there. Next up, we have bigger bases. So these are the new rules now. So the ghost runner on second, that's carried over. So now these are the three new rules. So first we have the bigger bases. The bases were usually about 15 inches square. They've enlarged them to 18 inches square, except for home plate. That one remains the same. The main goal for this was to kind of give a bit more room for the fielders making a play, avoiding the collision of the incoming base runner, especially at first base. That was why they did it. And again, all of these rules were experimented with in the minors. They weren't, it's not something that they just like made up and said, okay, let's do it. They've been in the minor leagues at minimum for a year, if not longer, at various levels. So, they have experimented with all of these. So the main reason was mainly to avoid collisions and give the fielders a little bit more room to make that play. But because of this, there's actually a 4.5-inch difference now in the distance between first and second and third. So the result is some more stolen bases. And there's something else that's going to come into play too, that's going to help with these stolen bases. But you wouldn't think 4.5 inches would make a lot of difference as far as the distance, but it does. Because, you got the bigger base and you've got the stolen bases. The shorter distance. So there already is some more stolen bases already starting off this season. And it's also kind of preventing the players from, when they're sliding into the bag, like losing contact. So one of the things, and this has worked for and against the Cubs as I've watched games. One of the things, though, that is really kind of obnoxious is when the player's sliding into the bag, right? And as their foot is coming over the bag, momentum kind of kicks it up naturally off the bag. And if the player, the defender, is holding that tag like the entire time, if their foot comes off that bag, or their I should say not just their foot, but if their contact breaks off that bag for like a split second while that defender has that tag applied, they're out. They could beat the throw by 600 feet. But if that contact comes up as they're sliding, they're out. And it's always a frustrating play, especially when it's against you. I mean, even when I've seen it when the Cubs have been the fielders and they get the other guy out, it's like, yeah, great, I'm glad they got him out. But it's like, in my mind, it's like, man, that guy was safe. Like, he beat the throw, his foot was on the bag well before the tag. But because the defender held that tag, and momentum is sometimes naturally bringing your foot off that bag, you're called out, because a lot of teams will challenge it, and then you're called out. So this may help with that a little bit. I don't really have an opinion on it. If it makes it safer, and again, if it, kind of really truly you beat the tag when you're stealing, not even just stealing a bag, but even just sliding into a bag, you beat the tag, or beat the throw, I should say, and beat the tag, I'm good with it. So the next one we have is the shift limits on defense. So it started becoming really, really popular for teams to shift dramatically defensively, especially for left-handed batters. It got to the point where they were nearly taking away the entire side of the right part of the field. And, I mean, you're essentially forcing a lefty batter to go the other way, find some sort of gap, or hit it out of the park. Batting averages were essentially dropping every season. And it became sometimes frustrating to watch, because, you had these left-handed batters that were usually really, really good, or, decent offensively. And man, it's like having a brick wall on the left side. I mean, they do it on the right, for right-handed batters too, but it wasn't nearly as dramatic or noticeable, I guess I should say. I mean, a lot of times what they did was they would basically, like, the third baseman would move to the shortstop position. So he'd be the only guy on the left side of the field. And then the shortstop would go over by second, and he's playing like in short right field in between first and second. And then the second baseman would kind of go sometimes like behind second base, kind of in still in the infield, sometimes just on the outfield, almost in a short center. First baseman would stay in his usual spot. But if they did like a shift on a right-handed batter, you never saw the second baseman go and play in between short and third. But for a left-handed batter, you almost always saw the shortstop go and play in the outfield in between first and second. So essentially, what they changed now is the defense now has to have a minimum of 4 players in the infield, and 2 of them have to be completely on either side of second base. So you have to, like, they can play, the first baseman can play where he wants, second baseman can play where he wants, as long as he is on the second base side of second base. And then same thing with shortstop and third. If they want to, if the third baseman wants to hug the line, or he wants to play it short and the shortstop wants to move more towards center, they can do that, providing that they are still on the left side of second base. They have to stay within the outer edge or the border of the infield. When the pitcher is on the rubber, they have to be back on the infield, and they can't switch sides. So what that means is basically if let's say the shortstop is a bit better defender than the second baseman, they can't flip-flop positions between a righty and a lefty batter. So like the shortstop is at shortstop for a lefty batter, he has to be at shortstop for a right-handed batter too. He can't go to the other side. So if they aren't lined up properly at the time of the pitch, then the offense can either choose to take an automatic ball or whatever the result of the play is. So if they actually put the ball in play for a hit, they can keep that result. Now, this doesn't impact the outfielders, though. They can stand where they want, including on the infield. But you just can't have 4 outfielders. I'm tossed on it because, I kind of always believed, hey, you got to hit it where they ain't. But like I said, it was super frustrating to just watch these lefties just ground out because you had that one player, he would technically hit it for what should be a hit because he'd find that gap between second and third. And yet that 4th outfielder was always just standing right there. So I think it'll be a little bit better, offensively, in getting that done. And then lastly, the last one, the pitch clock. Now this one, you can hear it in my voice because I'm sorry. I don't like this rule. I don't. And I'll tell you why. It's gotten some praise, kind of all over. A lot of people love it. A lot of people hate it. I've never really seen anybody that is just meh. You either love it or you hate it. I'm leaning towards just not having it. Granted, I don't want to sit there and watch the pitcher toss to first 600 times. That gets so obnoxious. Or, a batter adjusting his glove after every at-bat, taking his sweet time. And yeah, there were some players that over-exaggerated that more than others. But essentially, in all honesty, I'm in no rush to leave a baseball game. I'm in no rush to stop watching a baseball game. If I have to leave, I have to leave. There's not going to be a season where I'm going to attend every single game, unless I'm retired. Or I'm going to be able to watch and listen to every game. I am far too busy. If I'm on the go, if I'm in the car, I turn on the radio. If I have to leave the house and the game is on, I turn it on the radio. If I'm at work, honestly, half the time, I have it on my phone just silently. And I have it in front of me if it's a day game. If I'm just out and about and I simply can't watch it, I got about 8,000 notifications to tell me what the score is, what's going on, etc. But when I go to a game, and given the prices that majority of these teams now charge, again, I am a season ticket holder, so I know I spend more than the average fan in a season. But still, even the average fan, Chicago, we don't have a lot of minor league teams around here. That are MLB affiliate, I should say. We have other leagues close to us. But as far as MLB affiliates, we don't have a lot of minor league teams here, so it's hard to go to a minor league game unless you travel. But still, for what we're paying, and just as much as I love the game and the atmosphere of being at the ballpark, I don't need to be out of the ballpark in 2.5 hours, especially given the fact that it takes me almost an hour to get there and an hour or two to get home. Baseball thinks that this is going to move the game faster and it's going to create more excitement and draw in more younger fans. Now, let's not mention the blackout restrictions that they could get rid of. That would draw a lot more people, especially since, fans are all over the country, but that's none of my business. And that's a whole nother subject. So anyways, they brought in the pitch clock from the minors, right? Again, spin in the minors. Essentially, the breakdown is this. There's 30 seconds between batters, 15 seconds between pitches if the bases are empty, 20 seconds between pitches if there's a runner on base. The pitcher has to begin his motion to deliver the ball before that timer reaches 0. If they violate that timer, it's an automatic ball to the batter. The batter must also be in the batting box and alert to the pitcher with 8 seconds left. And if the batter violates the timer, it's an automatic strike. If there are runners on base and the pitcher attempts to pick them off, the timer resets. But they can only attempt to disengage, which is either a pick-off or a step-off, twice per batter. So they can only disengage twice per batter. And a disengagement means they try to pick off a runner or they just step off the rubber. That's reset, though, if there is a runner on base and he steals the base. Or he steals a base, I should say. If they attempt to pick off a third time and they're unsuccessful, then the runner that's on that base automatically gets to advance to the next base. Mound visits, injury timeouts, batter timeouts, offensive timeouts, whatever, those don't count against the pitchers. The 5 mound visits still remains, and if they use up all 5 mound visits before the 9th inning, they get 1 more mound visit, which also allows for one additional disengagement. Now keep in mind, these timers are all at the ump's discretion. You see them tell the guy running the timer. I think I've seen it, and I think Brig pointed this out too. We were all chatting about it. You see him, I've seen him do it in a couple of games. Waves his finger, gives some sort of signal to start the timer. The rule says they're supposed to allow a reasonable amount of time, if they want, in order to start the pitch clock. So again, this is discretion, because every umpire is going to have a different version of what is a reasonable amount of time. The umpires are also given their discretion that in special circumstances they can allow extra time, but they don't have to. And we've already seen this discrepancy between umpires this year. In one game, Andrew McCutchen is re-signed with the Pirates, where he played a lot of his career. He was a huge fan favorite, and he is re-signed with the Pirates. So when he returned back to Pittsburgh for the first Pirates home game, he got a standing ovation in his first at-bat going back. Umpire kind of let him relish in that moment, gave him a little bit before starting that pitch clock. However, a different umpire did not give that same concession when Cody Bellinger, who is now with the Cubs, but he spent his whole career already with the Dodgers. So the Cubs went out to LA already, and when Cody Bellinger got there and went up through his first at-bat as a member of the Cubs, he was awarded a pitch clock violation for the standing ovation that he received from the Dodgers home fans. And that pitch clock violation, he was ready and alert to the pitcher at 7 seconds. But because it wasn't at 8 seconds, like the rule says, he was given a strike and a pitch clock violation. So this is where I have an issue. Again, it is just like the strike zone, right? Strike zone is going to be a strike zone. You're going to have some umpires that have horrible ones. You're going to have some umpires that have great ones. But this, again, is the umpire discretion. And we've already seen it just, sometimes it's like it's a clear violation. The guy's just not getting in the box. I saw another one. It was a Mets player where the runner, after a long foul ball, the runner who was on first didn't get back to first in time, and it ultimately caused the batter to not get back and alert in the box in time, even though the pitcher wasn't ready because he was waiting for the runner to return. The batter got the pitch clock violation and got a strike called on him for his teammate not getting back to first. And, some have argued, well, it's a team game that'll teach you to hustle back to first. I don't like the rule. I don't think I'm going to be convinced to like this rule unless they really start making it a little bit more fair. Again, it's umpire discretion. We've seen some discrepancies already on it, some kind of just crap-ass calls. But that's the other one. But anyways, and they have said already this year the games are down an average of 31 minutes. Some games are done before 2.5 hours. I was at opening day for the Cubs, and I swear I blinked and we were in the 7th inning singing the stretch. The game started at 1:20, and it was like 3 o'clock, and we were already in the 7th inning. And I was like, oh my gosh. Now, granted, it was freezing, but low-scoring games are just exceptionally fast now. And I don't like it. Like, I didn't like the fact that we were done by 3:45 for a 120 game. We're usually done by like 4:30. It was short. And while it was freezing, it's like, okay, great, now I can go warm up. You know what? In the summer, I'm not going to want to leave. And all that's going to do is put everybody in the bar area. Like, seriously. People aren't going to want to leave. I'm sorry. That's me. That's my opinion. Like I said, some people absolutely love it. I don't. I just don't. I don't know. Maybe I'll change my mind as the season goes on, but we'll see. Anyways, all right, on to the Cubs. I'm going to recap all the way back to November of last year after the 2022 season ended. We finished 74-88 and third in the NL Central. In regular baseball, like outside of the Cubs, the Astros did beat the Phillies in the World Series. We had kind of already started our movement. We had previously released fan favorite Frank the Tank Schwindel. And then when free agency started, we lost our beloved catcher Wilson Contreras, who ultimately signed with the hated St. Louis Cardinals and has since been very vocal about leaving the Cubs. At least he was at the start of the season. He's kind of quieted down now. But super vocal about the fact that he left the Cubs and how he belongs in St. Louis. And to rub salt in the wound, right? Wilson's younger brother, William, who is also a catcher, I believe. He was with the Braves. He's now with the Brewers. So we got both Contreras brothers in our division now. Oi. Anyways, pitcher Wade Miley also signed with the Brewers. Pitcher Alexander Vizcaino, we got him in the trade for Anthony Rizzo. He's still a free agent. And outfielder Rafael Ortega, he is playing in the AAA affiliate for the Yankees. We also ultimately finally released Jason Hayward, who, good for him, he's now playing with the Dodgers. And we picked up second baseman Miles Mastrobuoni in a trade from the Tampa Bay Rays for minor league pitcher Alfredo Zaraga. We signed pitcher Braylon Marquez to a minor league contract as well, as he did elect free agency, but we did re-sign him to a minor league contract. In December, we signed free agent outfielder Cody Bellinger, like I previously mentioned. We also signed pitchers Brad Boxberger, re-signed Drew Smiley and Jamison Tyon. We picked up shortstop Dansby Swanson and catcher Tucker Barnhart. Catcher PJ Higgins was ultimately DFA'd, as was first baseman Alfonso Rivas, and we claimed pitcher Anthony Kay off of waivers from the Toronto Blue Jays. In January and February, we signed free agent first baseman and DHs Eric Hosmer and Trey Mancini. They announced Trey Mancini at the convention, so that was fun. Catcher Luis Torrens, pitchers Mark Leiter Jr. and Michael Fulmer, and third baseman Edwin Rios, and we put pitchers Ethan Roberts, who, like I said, I met him at the convention, and then also Cody Hoyer. They're both on the 60-day IL as they both had Tommy John surgery. So that's kind of the main. Again, there was a lot of movement. This would take almost an hour to go through everything, but those were the main players, a lot of ones that I'm sure you guys are most familiar with, as far as, players that have been on the roster already or just the big names that we signed. As March moved in, we started spring training. I started to get really excited again watching some of these spring training games. Not only with the moves we made thus far, but watching some of our younger guys play. And some of these guys we got like in the trades back in like 2021 when we traded a lot of our core players and stuff. Some of them are draft picks, so they're, Cubs farm grown. But, I've said this before on other podcasts. If you don't keep up with the minor leagues, you honestly should. Our high A team, the South Bend Cubs, they won the Midwest League Championship last season. I got a picture with the trophy at CubsCon. And this team includes, honestly, one of my favorite up-and-coming players, Pete Crow Armstrong, and Owen Casey. They are so much fun to watch. Crow Armstrong is just, he was fantastic in spring training. They're currently in Double-A Tennessee. He's also there with catcher Miguel Amaya. And again, like I said, Owen Casey is there. Pitcher's Ben Brown. Chase Strumpf is there. Pitcher Ryan Jensen. So again, I watch the Double-A team right now in Tennessee, the Tennessee Smokies. A lot of the super, I mean, they're all super fun to watch, but a lot of some of these up and coming players are on the Double-A team right now. Center fielder Kevin Alcantara is with South Bend, and outfielders Brennan Davis, Alexander Canario, Nelson Velasquez, Miles Mastroboni, Christopher Morel. You should all be familiar with Morel. David Bodie, pitchers Caleb Killian, Jeremiah Estrada, Adrian Sampson, Javier Assad, and Rowan Wick are all in AAA. So even AAA, we have some really good names. I honestly was really surprised that they sent Morel back down because we really don't have a plethora of outfielders right now at the major league level. So I was surprised he didn't make the active roster, but I don't think he's going to be down there long. Speaking of Bodie, you know, he's always been a favorite of mine. I really, really hope he can get back to major league form. But he just hasn't been the same since that shoulder separation. And I'm not sure if he's going to get back. He didn't do horribly in spring training. But if he does come back, I don't know where he's going to go now. With the signing of Dansby Swanson, you know, we moved Horner over to second. Nico Horner, he's over at second. Patrick Wisdom's still usually at third. He's already, you know, his bat's already heating up. So, I mean, unless he's just like a bench backup, I don't know if he has a future here with the Cubs anymore, unfortunately. And it's kind of sad, but we'll see, you know, we'll see what he does. And then, you know, lastly, Zach McKinstry, if you remember him from last season, he was traded to the Tigers in exchange for pitcher Carlos Guzman. We finished spring training with an 18-12-2 record. We did have 2 ties. You got to remember spring training, they don't break ties. If it's tied at the bottom of the ninth, you guys are done. It was fun to watch. I loved watching, you know, spring training, the games that I could catch. And I also loved the World Baseball Classic. I don't know if you guys watched that, but that was an absolute blast. Ultimately, Team Japan did beat Team USA in the championship game by a score of 3-2. And it was super exciting to see my favorite player, Kyle Schwarber, play for Team USA. I may have bought his Team USA jersey. Maybe. It's a good maybe that I did. The Cubs players who were in the WBC included pitchers Marcus Stroman and outfielder Nelson Velasquez, both who played for Team Puerto Rico. Pitcher Javier Assad played for Team Mexico. Seiya Suzuki, who ultimately didn't play due to an oblique injury that he suffered during spring training. He was supposed to play for Team Japan. Matt Mervis played with Team Israel. Owen Casey, utility player Jared Young, and pitcher Curtis Taylor played with Team Canada. Miles Mastroboni, pitcher Vinny Natoli, and outfielder Ben DeLuzio played with Team Italy. Pitcher Danis Correa and infielder Fabian Pertus played with Team Colombia. Infielder BJ Murray played with Team Great Britain. Pitcher Ronis Elias played with Team Cuba. And finally, infielder Liam Spence played with Team Australia. One of our 2022 draft picks, Brandon Noriega, was also part of Team Great Britain. He was in the designated pitcher pool if needed. And additionally, Trey Mancini for Team Italy, Nick Madrigal for Team Mexico, Rowan Wick for Team Canada, Christopher Morel for Team Dominican Republic, Miguel Amaya for Team Panama, and Adbert Alzolay for Team Venezuela. They were all going to commit to play for their countries, but ultimately they decided to focus on spring training and avoiding an injury risk. So all in all, though, the Cubs were well represented across several countries. Again, so the WBC is something that's played every 3 years, but it was last played in 2017 because 2020 was COVID, so they didn't play it then. But they did bring it back, and they've already said that they're going to play in 2026. So if you remember 3 years from now, seriously, it was so much fun to watch. Now, as the season started on March 30th, we placed Seiya Suzuki on the 15-day IL with that aforementioned oblique strain. And then pitchers Kyle Hendricks, who's still battling a right shoulder strain, and Brandon Hughes were both on the 15-day IL with left knee inflammation. We opened the season with the W at home in Wrigley against the Brewers. I went, like I stated, it was cold, but it was fun as always. I even ran into Bill Murray in the elevator. He complimented my Cubs decorated nails. It was fun. Marcus Stroman was our opening day starter. He pitched fantastically. He's actually been pitching very, very well already this season. And so far, the Cubs are playing pretty good baseball. Right now, as of this recording, we have a record of 13-9. They've won 4 of their first 7 series, although one of the series against the Reds left at 1-1 because the rubber match was rained out, postponed till September. So if you take that series away, we've won 4 of the first 6. We're currently in 3rd place in the NL Central. We're 3 games out of first, but we have the 5th best record in the National League and the 9th best record in all of the majors. I know it's early, but I've been saying that these guys, even before, with some of the offseason moves that we made, I said that I think this team is going to be very similar to that 2015 team. Maybe not World Series material yet, but I do think that it's going to be an exciting season, much more exciting than last year. We have ultimately found our leadoff hitter in Nico Horner. We have a pretty established roster. So going through that active roster, our starting rotation is Marcus Stroman, Justin Steele, Jamison Taillon, Drew Smyly, and Hayden Wesneski. Wesneski pitched amazingly. He earned that spot in spring training, but he has struggled in his starts. He has settled down the last 2 starts. His first 2 or 3 were not great, but he has settled down and pitched very well. Drew Smyly flirted with a perfect game last week. He was perfect through 7, and in the 8th inning against the Dodgers, I honestly can't think of the batter that did it. It's on the tip of my tongue, but hit like a swinging bunt, like a little dribbler up the third base line, and Smyly went after it, and Yan Gomes went after it. And ultimately, they were both so focused on picking up that ball and trying to throw out the batter, running to first, that they weren't paying attention to each other, and they ended up tripping each other. It was the most bizarre play, the worst way to lose, and they gave the batter an infield single. So the worst way to lose not only a perfect game, but a no-hitter. It was crazy. But that was probably one of Drew Smyly's best outings of his career. And Jamison Taillon, he just hit the 15-day IL with a left groin strain. So I don't know who's going to take his place as a 5th starter. I don't know if we're going to go with a 4-man rotation right now. I can't see us doing a 4-man rotation already, but Javier Assad and Jeremiah Estrada have already been up and down from AAA, but they're coming in out of the bullpens. Assad is back in AAA. Estrada is still with the major league team. So I don't know. I don't know who's going to be that 5th starter. Stroman played yesterday. Stroman played Sunday. Steele started tonight. Drew Smyly is tomorrow. Wesneski is Thursday. And Friday's game is TBD. So I don't know who's going to go. I mean, I guess technically 1, 2, 3, 4. You could put Marcus Stroman there. But that would only be 4 days of rest between his last start. So we'll see what David Ross decides to do. Kyle Hendricks is on a rehab assignment now in AAA. Our relievers also include Adbert Alzolay, Brad Boxberger, Michael Fulmer, Brandon Hughes. He is back from the IL, actually. Mark Leiter Jr., Julian Merriweather, Michael Rucker, and Keegan Thompson. So far, our pitching has been pretty outstanding. Fulmer has struggled heavily, but it's been a nice change to see with the pitching. We're holding, the starters aren't giving up a ton, and we're holding either some leads or holding the teams long enough to give our offense a chance to maybe get back in the game. We still don't really have a solid closer. Rucker's filled in a few times, but nobody that's really come out and consistently been the closer. Around the field, our starting first baseman kind of rotates between Eric Hosmer and Trey Mancini. Usually, if one of them's playing first, the other one is the DH. So they kind of rotate in and out of DH. Second baseman, we have Nico. He has been fantastic so far this year. I actually have him on my fantasy baseball team. Over at short, we have Dansby Swanson. And then at third base, we have Patrick Wisdom. I did carry Patrick also on my fantasy team for a little bit when he was raking. Nick Madrigal and Edwin Rios both fill in third as well, and Rios does do some DH duties. Jan Gomes and Tucker Barnhart share our catching duties. We do have catcher Luis Torrens on the roster, but he's usually in as a designated hitter. And then in the outfield, we have Ian Happ in left, Cody Bellinger in center, and Seiya Suzuki in right. He did come back from that oblique strain last week. I also have Happ and Seiya on my fantasy team. And I'm not doing that because I'm a Cubs fan and I'm putting Cubs players on my fantasy team. I'm doing it because they were playing really good baseball and they were hitting very, very well. So, I mean, again, I'm playing to win. So, anyways. But so far, then again, like I said, I've been pretty impressed. I can see shades of the 2015 team. I'll be excited to see where we go. I honestly think we could be a wild card team this season. And I said that even before we started. When we did our fantasy baseball drafts, they asked my prediction. And I said, that's exactly what I said. I said, I see shades of 2015, and I think we could make the wild card. So that's kind of my prediction, and I think that's about it for now. So to wrap up, even though the season's already almost a month in, I'll kind of do my quick division predictions. It's kind of hard because the way that the divisions are standing right now is not how I'm going to predict that they would end, and there's already been some surprises. Starting in the NL Central, I'm honestly tossed. The Cardinals were the favorites, and if I would have started at the start of the season, I probably would have picked the Cardinals, maybe the Brewers. The Cardinals are playing horrible right now, though. I think they're fourth or tied for last, and the Pirates are smoking everybody. They've got the best freaking record, I think, in the majors. I'm like, what? What's going on here? But anyways, so I still think the Cardinals are going to come back. I don't know if the Pirates will hold it. Although, I mean, they did just extend Brian Reynolds, but just the ownership on that team, I don't know. I see the Cubs, though, in second. And I think the Brewers and the Pirates are going to battle for third and fourth, and the Reds are going to be in fifth. The NL Central has 3 of the top 5 teams right now. Like I said, we're 13-9, and we're in third. The Brewers and the Pirates are ahead of us. We're a game behind the Brewers and 3 games behind the Pirates. In the NL East, I think the Phillies are going to repeat with the Braves in second, the Mets in third, the Marlins in fourth, and the Nats in fifth. In the NL West, even though they're only playing 500 ball right now, I think the Padres are just too dang loaded to just be an average team. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I know a lot of people love seeing the Padres fail. But I still think the Padres could take the NL West this year, and the Dodgers, again, are going to put up a very close second. But the Dodgers aren't playing the best either. I don't know. I think the Diamondbacks might be a surprise third, the Giants in fourth, and the Rockies in fifth. Over in the AL Central, I think the Minnesota Twins will take it. Guardians are going to be in second. White Sox in third, Tigers in fourth, and the Royals bringing up the rear. In the AL East, right now, man, the Tampa Bay Rays are just so good. I think they started the season like 13-0. I don't know, man. I think the NL East is going to be a tough race between the Rays, the Yankees, the Blue Jays, and the surprising Orioles. I still think the Rays are going to take it, but the Orioles, Yankees, and Blue Jays, I don't know who's going to come in second through fourth. And I just have the Red Sox last. I think the Orioles are going to surprise some people. They've got some good young players over there. And then finally in the AL West, I still think it's the Astros division to lose. Seattle, though, man, they're going to fight and make their case too. I actually predicted them for the World Series to take it this year. I don't know. The Phillies might give them a run, though, too. We'll see. I got the Rangers in third, Angels in fourth, and they may very well trade Shohei Ohtani if they don't improve or if they're not contending at the trade deadline. Cubs. So look for Shohei Ohtani to be on that trading block mid-season possibly. And well, Oakland, the Athletics, they just announced that they're going to be moving to Las Vegas in the next few seasons. They're going to be in fifth in the AL West, and I honestly think they are going to be the worst team in the majors right now. They are playing absolute horrid baseball. They have the worst run differential already, and I think they broke a record of like the fastest to get to like 100 run differential. I think they've won 5 games so far. I honestly feel sorry for their fans. Oakland just cannot keep a team in any pro sport. And it sucks. As a general sports fan or a baseball fan, I can't even imagine what would happen if like Chicago just like let go of all their sports team. Granted, we're probably a much bigger market than Oakland, but still, when you've already lost, your football team and any other sport that you had, basketball team, etc. It sucks now that, they've been in the Oakland Coliseum since the 70s, and it sucks that they're going to be gone now. So, anyways, that about wraps up my first 2023 Cubs podcast here for March and April. Remember, you can listen to our Baseball Together casts wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, rate, review, share with all your other baseball friends. As always, feel free to send me any questions, suggestions for topics, etc. And I will see you all at the end of May. Bye.